$3. That's all she had for the entire week. And she fed 8 children on it. No food stamps, no coupons, just knowledge that's been almost completely forgotten. By the end of this video, you'll know it too. Before we start, look at this. A modern grocery receipt. Bread, milk, eggs, a little meat. $287. In 1933, that same mother walked out of the general store with a week's worth of food for $3 flat. She didn't have more money. She had something we lost. Knowledge passed down from her own mother and her grandmother before her. Tonight, we're bringing it back. 40 pantry secrets, starting with the most important one of all. Secret number 1, stretching meat. 1 pound of ground beef in 1933 had to last 3 days. Monday, it became a meatloaf, patted with stale bread, onion, and an egg, feeding everyone. Tuesday, the leftover slices were chopped into a thick potato hash. Wednesday, the scraps and bones simmered into a hearty soup with whatever vegetables were on hand. 1 pound, 3 meals, 8 mouths. That wasn't poverty cooking. That was engineering. Secret number 2, bacon grease as kitchen currency. Every Depression-era mother kept a tin can on the back of her stove, and every drop of bacon fat went into it. She used it to fry potatoes, season beans, grease the cornbread pan, oil the cast iron, soften pie crust, flavor gravy, and even rub on chapped hands in winter. 7 uses from what we throw away today. That single tin saved the equivalent of $15 a month in cooking oil. Secret number 3, the weeds you eat for free. Dandelion greens, lamb's quarter, purslane, chickweed, plantain. To us, they're lawn nuisances. To a 1933 mother, they were a salad bar growing in the yard. Dandelion is richer in vitamin A than carrots. Lamb's quarter has more iron than spinach. She'd send the children out with a basket after a rain, and dinner included greens that cost absolutely nothing. The yard fed the family. Secret number 4, the 3 pots Sunday method. Sunday morning, she lit the stove once and cooked for 4 days. 1 pot held beans simmering with a ham hock. Another held a big batch of cornbread. The third, vegetable stew, with whatever root crops she had. By Monday night, those 3 pots had become 6 different meals through clever combinations. 1 day of fuel, 4 days of feeding. The wood stove never had to roar again until Thursday. Secret number 5, bread pudding 5 ways. No slice of bread was ever thrown out. Stale bread became Monday's sweet bread pudding with cinnamon and a touch of molasses. Tuesday it was savory, baked with onions and cheese rind. Wednesday, fried into French toast. Thursday, soaked in milk and called poor man's custard. Friday, dried into breadcrumbs that topped a casserole. 5 meals from what most modern families toss in the trash without a second thought. Secret number 6, eggshell calcium and the no waste rule. After breakfast, eggshells didn't go in the bin. She rinsed them, baked them dry in the cooling oven, crushed them to powder, and stirred a pinch into oatmeal, gravy, or chicken feed. Pure calcium, free. The rule in her kitchen was simple. If it came into the house, it left the house only as ash or compost. Nothing wasted. Nothing. That single discipline saved more money than any coupon ever could. Secret number 7, the $0 root cellar. She didn't have a fancy basement. She had a hole in the north side of the yard, lined with straw, covered with old boards and dirt. Potatoes, carrots, turnips, cabbages, and apples stayed cool and crisp for 6 months. No electricity, no refrigerator, just dirt and patience. A modern fridge runs you $120 a year. Her root cellar ran her nothing and held 3 times the food. Secret number 8, flour barrels and the Weevil War without chemicals. A 50-pound sack of flour was a fortune in 1933, and weevils could ruin it overnight. Her trick? A single bay leaf placed inside the barrel, sometimes a clove of garlic or a stick of spearmint. The bugs hated the smell and stayed away. No pesticides, no plastic, just a leaf from the herb pot. That barrel of flour lasted 6 months without a single bug in sight. Secret number 9, the milk that never spoiled. Long before refrigerators were common, she'd pour fresh milk into a sealed jar, lower it into the well, or set it in a clay pot wrapped in wet burlap. Evaporation kept it cool. When milk did start to turn, it didn't get thrown out. It became buttermilk biscuits, cottage cheese, or fed to the pig. Sour milk was a beginning, not an ending. Every step of decay had a purpose in her kitchen. Secret number 10, coffee that lasted twice as long. Coffee was a luxury, so she stretched it. Roasted chicory root, dried and ground, was mixed half and half with real coffee grounds. Some mothers added roasted barley or even dandelion root. The cup was darker, earthier, and rich. A pound of coffee that should have lasted 2 weeks lasted a month, and nobody at her table complained. They were grateful for the warmth on a cold morning. Secret number 11, the soup pot that never died. On the back of every depression stove sat a heavy iron pot, and it simmered almost continuously. Every scrap went in. Vegetable peels, meat bones, the last spoonful of beans, a chicken neck. By the end of the week, it was the richest, most complex broth you ever tasted. She called it perpetual soup. Some families kept theirs going for months. Free flavor from things we throw away by the bagful. Secret number 12, sourdough starter, the immortal bread. She didn't buy yeast every week. She kept a jar of sourdough starter on the windowsill, fed it with flour and water, and baked bread from it for years, sometimes for decades. Some American starters today are over 100 years old, passed mother to daughter. 1 jar, 1 pinch of flour a day, and the family had fresh bread forever. Try buying that kind of value at the grocery store today. Secret number 13. Apple peels, cores, and the vinegar magic. After canning apples in the fall, she didn't throw away the peels and cores. She covered them with water and a little sugar, left them in a crock for 6 weeks, and ended up with gallons of apple cider vinegar. That vinegar pickled vegetables, dressed salads, cleaned windows, and even soothed sore throats. Apples paid for themselves 3 times over before they were finished. Nothing was an end. Everything was a beginning. Secret number 14. The chicken that fed the family 3 ways. Sunday dinner was roast chicken, and every part counted. The meat fed everyone on Sunday. The carcass made broth on Monday. The feet and giblets went into Tuesday's gravy. The feathers stuffed pillows. The bones, once boiled twice, were ground for the garden. 1 bird, 4 days of meals, and even the soil benefited. That is what real abundance looks like. When nothing is wasted, everything is enough. Secret number 15. Homemade lard from a single hog. Once a year, the family butchered a hog, and the fat was rendered down into snow-white lard, stored in stone crocks in the cellar. That lard was used for frying, baking pie crusts, soap making, and even sealing jars of preserved meat. 1 hog gave the family enough cooking fat for an entire year. Today we pay $40 a year for cooking oil. She paid nothing because she planned ahead. Secret number 16. The bean barrel and protein for pennies. A 25-pound sack of dried beans cost about 60 cents in 1933 and fed the family for 2 months. Pinto, navy, kidney, lima, soaked overnight, simmered with a smoked bone, seasoned with onion. Beans were her cheapest protein, and she knew a dozen ways to dress them up so the children never tired of them. Bean soup, refried beans, bean cakes, baked beans. The barrel never seemed to empty. Oh. Secret number 17. Molasses, the poor man's sugar. White sugar was expensive, but a gallon of blackstrap molasses cost almost nothing and lasted half a year. She sweetened oatmeal, baked it into gingerbread, drizzled it on cornbread, brewed it with vinegar, into a homemade soda. Molasses also gave the children iron and minerals when meat was scarce. 1 thick, dark, sticky jug did the work of 3 pounds of sugar and tasted like a piece of old America. Secret number 18. The garden that paid the grocery bill. A small backyard plot, 30 by 30 feet, could produce hundreds of pounds of food in a single season. Tomatoes, beans, squash, corn, cucumbers, peppers, onions. She canned the surplus in mason jars and lined them up in the cellar like soldiers. 200 jars by October meant the family ate well all winter. The garden wasn't a hobby. It was the difference between eating and going hungry. Secret number 19. The canning jar that paid for itself 100 times. A glass mason jar cost about 10 cents in 1933. Used carefully, it lasted 40 years. She filled it with tomatoes in summer, pickles in fall, applesauce in winter, jam in spring. Each jar held about $3 worth of food, refilled twice a year for 40 years. That 10-cent jar produced $240 in stored value. The math of frugality was patient and powerful. Secret number 20. The cornmeal that became everything. A 5-pound bag of cornmeal cost a dime and became cornbread for dinner, mush for breakfast, hush puppies on Friday, Johnny cakes on Sunday, and a coating for fried fish whenever the boys caught a few. Cornmeal was the most flexible flour in the kitchen. Combined with bacon grease, eggs, and a little milk, it could feed the whole table for under 20 cents. Simple ingredients, endless meals. Secret number 21, the dishwater that fed the garden. Nothing left her kitchen as waste. Greasy dishwater watered the rose bushes. Vegetable cooking water cooled and went on the tomatoes, full of minerals. Even the water from boiling eggs was saved for the houseplants. She understood something we've forgotten, that water carries nutrients, and pouring it down the drain is pouring money away. Her plants grew taller, and her bills stayed lower because she paid attention. Secret number 22, the rag bag and the mending basket. Worn out clothes never went in the trash. Shirts became dish towels became cleaning rags. Cleaning rags became braided rugs. Buttons were cut off and saved in a jar. Zippers were salvaged. A single dress might have 8 lives before it finally returned to the earth. She didn't recycle as a moral statement. She recycled because every scrap had value, and waste was a sin against her family. Secret number 23. The trading network nobody talks about. She didn't shop alone. She traded eggs with the neighbor who kept goats for milk. She swapped tomatoes for apples with the family up the road. The seamstress 2 doors down fixed clothes in exchange for fresh bread. Cash barely changed hands. The whole neighborhood was a barter economy that ran beneath the official one. Today we call it community. Back then, they called it survival, and it kept everyone fed. Secret number 24. The Sunday prayer that started the week right. Before any of these techniques came the mindset. Before sitting down to eat, the family bowed their heads and gave thanks for what was on the table, even when it was thin. That gratitude wasn't decoration, it was discipline. It taught the children that food was sacred, that waste was wrong, and that enough was always enough. That single habit, gratitude, was the foundation under every other secret in this video. Secret number 25, and the one that ties them all together. She kept a small notebook in a kitchen drawer. In it, she wrote down every recipe, every trick her mother taught her, every price paid at the store, every bean planted in the garden. That notebook was her family's most valuable possession. When she passed, it went to her daughter, then her granddaughter. Knowledge written down outlives the writer. The greatest pantry secret of all was simply this: write it down, pass it on. $3 a week, 8 children. Not one of them went hungry. They weren't poor, they were rich in wisdom. If this video reminded you of someone, a mother, a grandmother, a way of life worth remembering, go ahead and subscribe. We're bringing the forgotten America back, one secret at a time. See you in the next one.